if the goal is a slick, efficient NHS, there are two aspects to that. There are two aspects to quality out there. There's a technical side around making sure that we're putting into practice best evidence. And Andrew's talked about this in his talk, around making sure that data supports the fact that we're doing things as efficiently and as effectively as we can. But there's also another aspect to that as well, which is it's fine for you to be good, but you've got to feel good to the people experiencing your service. And of course, it's got to feel good to us as clinicians working, and it's got to feel good to the patients experiencing the service coming through. And the point is that intermittently we have to kind of almost take the pulse of patient opinion just to check that we are adhering to those standards of quality. And it's with that in mind that we're very pleased to have Brinton Helliwell joining us this morning. He's going to provide a patient perspective to allow us to just check the pulse a bit. Thank you.
It's the fun of being a strokey. You have gadgets that get in the way of your gut. Good morning, everybody. I cannot express the joy that I feel in standing here. I hope that you've actually had a look at my brief conference biography, and you see that I have a background in education as a science teacher and a head of faculty in a large sixth form college. And 6 years ago, I had a major stroke. I can't hide the fact that I've had a stroke. I've got hemiparesis, and it has dominated my life, but I don't want it to, so I'm not here to talk about stroke. I'll use it in the introduction. I define myself as a strokey. I'm not a stroke survivor. That's a bit too namby-pamby. I'm not a stroke victim. That's really dangerous. Strokey suits me down the ground. It's got a bit of attitude, and I've got plenty of attitude left. I want bumper stickers. I want bumper stickers that say, strokeys do it with a limp, or a strokey's not for Christmas. We could have European stickers, stroke 9 danker, or a t-shirt, strokeys just do it. So that's why I call myself a strokey. If you feel a bit more comfortable, if that sounds a bit self-deprecating for you, you can call me a user. You know, that's the NHS speak, isn't it? I'll poke you in the eye if you do. But for the rest of this, presentation, I'll refer to users. It seems to be what the NHS is comfortable with. And I'm not here to abuse you, to name people who I see have failed, or unfortunately name successes. Mr. Lansley had just delivered his speech to you. I wasn't worried until I heard his speech, because what I want to say is so close to what he's just said, and I'm not a political person. The words that you will hear in the next 15 minutes are my words. Nobody has dictated to me what to say or has compromised what I want to say. That's what I want to get off my chest. So in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to give you a very personal insight into my perception of a few of the observations of successes and failures with NHS leadership and management. To start with, I think I'd like to take you back 6 years, to the 31st of August 2005 to be precise. Can you remember what you were doing on that day? Because I can. Can you remember what you had for breakfast? Because I can. And can you remember what sort of day it was? Because I can. And why can I remember all this trivia so vividly? I'm not a very sad man, so why am I here? To be blunt, it's not because I'm a dyed-in-the-wool altruist either. I had to leave my former employment in 2007, a broken man with an acquired brain injury that had left me with a physical, a cognitive and a psychological disability. However, the stroke didn't rob me of my determination to beat my brain or neglect my intellectual capacity. I set myself a task of getting involved as much as possible. I knew that the brain can only improve if it's used. As Norman Doidge said in his book, The Brain That Heals Itself, it's a use it or lose it brain. And I thought, well, if I use it, what have I got to lose? It's a no-brainer. So I became very active in PPI work, working to try and test my new brain, a brain that's now 6 years old with 53 years of experience. At the start, I simply set out to acquire more knowledge and understanding of what had happened to me. I was 100% certain about only one thing. I was not going to improve my cognitive skills watching Jeremy Kyle. So what does all this have to do with leadership? It's because patients and carers, patients and carers who have had an experience that's changed their life dramatically are enveloped in detail. Every bit of their care matters. And in my own case, the contrast between the nursing teams working in the high dependency unit of the stroke and neurology unit was as dramatic as being moved to a foreign country. The teams seemed to operate in two very different cultures. And I'm a nosy bugger. I wanted to know why. This is one of the major observations that I've reflected upon for the past 6 years. In my previous life, I worked in a target-led public service that was constantly bombarded with delivering the political whims of our country's leaders. I'm sure this scenario is familiar to most of you, especially within the current political context. However, I'm not here to take potshots at Mr. Lansley or government, but to give you a little bit of my own insight based upon experience and observations of the way in which leadership and management of the NHS impacts on the user. I've been truly amazed by how much the health service of 2011 reminds me of my previous life as a new teacher in a large 16 to 19 sixth form college back in the 1980s. I've heard many of the same arguments against change, particularly in regard to the measurement of patient outcomes. It's led me to conclude that what needs to change is the culture of the NHS. I can give you some graphic examples of what is wrong. That's not what I think is wrong, but what is quite bluntly indefensible in the new millennium. My first observation whilst lying in bed in hospital 6 years ago, I witnessed overt verbal sexual abuse of a young nurse by a doctor responsible for my care on the stroke ward. This is illegal and contrary to well-publicised NHS policy. But it was 6 years ago. Surely things have changed during that time. The NHS cannot be seriously perpetuating a carry-on film culture from the 1960s, can it? Okay, I can feel the eyes rolling and the sighs of indignation in the room. My second observation follows a talk that I gave to second-year undergraduate nurses at Birmingham School of Health on the 11th of April this year. I was told by several of the trainee nurses that sexual harassment of them was commonplace during their placements. My conclusion, therefore, is we all have a responsibility to ensure that we tackle unacceptable behaviour because we want the NHS to be an inclusive organisation that everybody that works in it, everybody that uses it, can be proud of it. And so what does it have to do with why we're gathered today? Simply because cultural change takes time and it needs very strong leadership. Cultural change requires leaders to show respect for and to value their colleagues' contributions. Most of all, though, it requires organisations and their leadership at every level to be reflective and very self-critical. It's not easy to achieve in an environment where many of the managers and leaders are highly intelligent, highly motivated, fiercely competitive and ambitious. But surely what matters most is the service to the users, the patients, the carers, the students. The principles hold true whether I'm talking to medics or educationalists.